Okay, and clap. Hey, friends.
Hey, friends.
Welcome to Leave Me Alone. I'm working on it. I'm Cassie J.
And I'm Ore. See, now it's not fair. You go Cassie J. And now I just go, oh, and I'm Ore.
I honestly feel like it's the way you say it. You can say anything. It's the way you say it, and it's going to
It's
sound really
not. It's
exciting.
just it's two syllables.
Watch. I'll show you. For
You're
example,
gonna say my own name better than me.
pulmonary embolism,
Of all the things
cardiovascular
you
threats.
you could have said, really?
Brain
Okay.
aneurysm.
Um, you sound like
Depends on how you
a
say it.
talk show in one of those 90s
Uh,
shows where they
those
tried to get
90s
you to
shows.
buy stuff on the TV. What those shopping shows, you know those, right?
Yes. What are they called?
I can't remember what
Infomercials. Infomercials.
is that what they're called?
Yeah, when they're like, have you ever tried to cut an onion, but you just keep crying?
No, not
Buy this whole
those.
thing.
Not those. These were like
Like the
full-on
shopping
fledged
channels.
talk shows. Yeah, like the shopping channel.
Yes,
But they're not ads.
infomercials.
They're not ads
But they
though.
are ads because there's someone will come up and he'll show you how he cuts his onions and he cries. And it's just like, well, this sucks. And the audience is like, boo. And then he's like, well, I've got the tool for you. And then he pops up. He's got this amazing tool that he puts over your eyes. And then you cut the onion. And then the guy's like, gee whiz, Bob, I'm never going to cry again. Like, and it's a whole show, and then they have a talk show. They discuss the technology behind it. They show you,
Okay.
and if you buy it now for just, if you get on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
phone and you
Okay.
call
Yeah,
right now for
that's the bit
nine
I'm
ninety
talking
nine,
about.
this can be yours. Like, it's the whole thing.
That's the one I'm talking about. Yes, 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 yes.
Infomercials,
Those are
infomercials, because it's
entertaining, to say the
yeah.
least.
Are they
I
entertaining?
think
I
they're
think they're
entertaining because they're
really silly.
oftentimes they're trying to sell you like the most basic thing that you
Yeah,
don't need, like sometimes the
yeah,
most useless thing. But the amount of
correct.
oomph they put into it and the enthusiasm, and
Yo,
you're just like,
you're like.
I'll try
You
that.
makes you stop and think. You're like, actually, I need one. Give me
Exactly.
17 right now.
And then you buy it and you never use it
And
because you
you never
didn't
use
need
it,
it.
or it didn't work like it did on the TV. And then you go into the store and it's like as seen on TV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that used to get me. Not
Yeah.
gonna lie, that used to get me.
Yeah. Um, Friend,
Mm.
today I want to talk about baggage.
Yo,
I know
that
it's
sounds
so
deep
hectic.
and
I want you
rough and
guys to
hectic.
strap yourselves in because
As I
there's a lot that I've
strap
been,
myself there.
as you strap yourself in, there's a lot that I've been thinking about. And I learned a new term recently. And
Okay.
when Cassie learns a new term, she falls into the pit of like research and digging deep and reading more about it, watching everything on it, really just to understand it. So I learned a new term and I would love to tell you about it today. That's what we're going to work on today. And I think it's fascinating. I think it's
Is the
helpful.
new term baggage?
No, it's not baggage, but it is. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. Um,
Sure.
have you watched? Have you watched How I Met Your Mother?
Didn't you just ask me this question like 2 days ago? I feel like you just asked me this recently. Have we
Probably I
gotten to the
did, maybe
point in
on a
our friendship where
call.
we've run out of things to talk about?
Look,
Have we hit that
it's
stride?
it's so possible. It's so possible. It's so possible.
I've watched it off and on, like when it's on TV. So I've binged it on TV when they've got like 7 episodes running or
Got it.
something, but
Got it.
I've
Got it.
not
Got it.
like
Got it. Got
sat
it.
down to watch it sequentially.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
yeah.
So my brother and I were big How I Met Your Mother fans. Like when it came out, like we were the people waiting week on week on week for the new episode to come out. So I watched it all. But so do you know like the cast? So basically there's this guy, Ted, you know, Ted, and he's
I
telling
know
his
the
kids the
cast, yeah.
story
Mm-hmm.
about how he met their mother.
Mm-hmm.
And we go on the journey as he dates all of the women of New York, it feels. Okay, so
Yeah.
one of the women that he one of the women that he dates. Does that sentence make sense?
One
One
of the
of the
women,
women
yeah.
that he dates. Okay, that is English. Congratulations. Okay. One of the women that he dates, he figures out that she's carrying a lot with her, and she brings those issues into their relationship. And it's stuff that he has to like kind of process and deal with. And in the end, they break up, but he learns this lesson that, everybody's carrying baggage. And the episode closes with, everyone walking up and down the streets of New York, and they're all carrying a bag, and on the bag is labeled whatever their trauma is.
Yo,
And I was
okay.
like, yeah, but it's just like, I thought it was such a good depictor of like everybody's got something.
Mm,
Um, and so I was scrolling on Instagram, and I came across this lady talking about this concept called epigenetics. Okay. And for me, like, so okay, so epigenetics, okay. I'm gonna go into a lot of what that is, but she basically speaks about how we speak a lot about genetic mutations and how stuff will happen and your body adapts, right?
mhm, mhm,
Epigenetics is a form of this genetic mutation, but it is one that speaks to whatever your lived experience is. Now,
mhm.
for me, in this last period for me, I start a lot of episodes like this, but I'm always in a phase of like reflection and going on this journey of self-awareness. One of the things for me, like you or I will remember because you walked this journey with me, but a couple episodes ago, I was crying because I was so stressed out and so anxious,
Oh,
and there was so much that I was carrying with me and on my shoulders. And I look back where I was then and where I am now, and I'm in a much better place now. There's still a lot that we're figuring out and we're going through, but we're definitely in a much better place. But
mm,
moving from one place to the next has made me also stop and ask myself, what baggage am I
mm,
carrying from my previous state of distress
mm,
into my new state of peace,
mm.
right? And just because it happened in the past doesn't mean it's not going to rear its ugly head again
Oh
in my
yeah.
present,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
Um, so like I said, scrolling Instagram, I come across this thing of epigenetics. And epigenetics is basically it's how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that ultimately affect the way your genes work. Okay. And so just to unpack that as a concept, like, yes, we talk about genetic mutations and they come in the form of the fact that, okay, I wear glasses today because my mother wore glasses and because my
mhm,
grandmother wore glasses. There is a genetic mutation of astigmatism in our eyes that means
mhm.
I am now blind. Thank you very much to my ancestral line.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Mm,
that's a form of a genetic mutation. There's nothing that can be done about that genetic mutation, right? Like
mm,
there's nothing I can do about my astigmatism. I don't know, maybe modern medicine will fix it. But chances are that if I have children, they too will have an astigmatism. Epigenetics speaks to the fact that your environment can then have your environment, your behaviors, the things that you do can then have an impact on your genes and how you show up in a space. Now, the story that comes with this, there was obviously scientists got together and did a thing. And they did this study in rats where they had these rats that were in a cage, and
mhm,
um then they opened the cage door, and every time the rats tried to run out of the cage, they were electrocuted. Okay. Not a great experiment for the animals. Okay. I just want to recognize that. But every time they tried to run out, they were electrocuted, they were buzzed. Okay. Whatever. So, but the door stayed open. Okay. These rats then went on to have children. Their children were taken away from them, moved into a separate cage where the
mm,
door was left open. There was no electrocution, no
mm,
shock, no
mm,
nothing. But these rats would not even try to run out the door and chase their freedom.
mm,
Okay. And basically, this is the concept of epigenetics. The the history of their parents' trauma has now altered their genetic sequence, like their DNA
mm,
sequence, and the way their brain is processing information that is presented in front of them. And
mm,
what this did for me, I was like, because I watched this video on Instagram of this lady telling the story of these rats and introducing the concept of epigenetics. Um, what this did for me was I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is my open door and what is my electric shock?
Mhm.
And is my electric shock still holding me back from running through my open door?
Mhm.
And that for me has just been like
Mind
my
blown.
mind is just absolutely blown by this concept that something that my previous trauma, okay, or I also feel like that word is overused, but my previous stresses in my life, and the things that caused me anxiety, stress, and pain, um, are how are they affecting me in my present?
Mhm. Mm. I do remember watching a video where a woman was talking about this. And I
Yeah.
remember just being like, I felt like I was hit in the face with a really big ball. It was just like, whoa. I remember seeing it and just going, I know that in recent times, people, and it's maybe not the exact same thing, but
Mm,
people have kind of wanted to shun the idea of like generational curses and
mm,
generational trauma and
mm.
wanting to do away with that and saying things like it doesn't really matter what happened to your ancestors or what happened to your parents. You know,
Yeah.
you have your life is in your hands. You have the power to make it right and all of that stuff. And I know for a fact that I don't 100% believe it, because I
Mm,
do think that sometimes generational trauma does come into play. Like
yeah.
sometimes if and you hear, because even if we want to pretend it doesn't exist, but you hear the stories, you
Yeah.
see, and this is a bad example, but it is one that I've seen talked about and I've seen played out. You see a
Mm,
family of women who grandma is a single mom and got pregnant
mm,
in high school. Mom, same. Daughter,
mm,
same. Granddaughter,
mm,
same. And
mm.
you want to say to me that all of these women just intentionally chose that this is the way life's going to go for me, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that sometimes we like to pretend like these kinds of things don't affect us or they don't happen. Like if your life is going badly or if you are facing
Mm,
some kind of trauma, it's 100% your fault.
mm,
I
mm,
don't know
mm.
that I 100% believe that. So I do think I subscribe to this. So I'm not necessarily saying that all of your baggage, because again, you can't blame your ancestors for everything as much as I would like to.
Well, yeah, for sure.
but
For
but
sure.
doesn't mean that all of your baggage or all of your struggles are stuff that has come from like you've inherited. It doesn't mean
Mm,
that. But I think that we
mm,
should have these kinds of conversations where we acknowledge that
mm.
sometimes it
Just
does
sometimes,
affect,
yeah.
because even if we're saying no, it doesn't happen, you don't inherit, it doesn't get passed down, the people who are raising you with certain biases and certain prejudices and certain trust
Correct.
issues based off of their lived
Absolutely.
experience. If that's how they
Absolutely.
they will channel that into how they're raising you, whether they want to or not, like subconsciously it'll happen, which
Mm,
then
mm,
means you have now
mm,
taken on their lived
mm,
experience without
mm,
even
mm,
knowing it. So it
mm.
will at some point inform your decision making, at some point come to play in your life,
1000.
because this is how like it
1000.
was built into you. So
Yeah.
I Cass, I
1000%.
agree with you. It's a scary thought,
It
but
is
I
a scary thought.
100% agree with you.
It's a scary thought, and I think you've touched on something that's important when you actually started speaking, where you're like, some people subscribe to it, some people don't subscribe to it.
Mm,
The point of epigenetics and the science and the research behind epigenetics is to say that it is scientifically shown
mhm,
that it has your environment, how you are brought up, whatever, has an impact
mm,
on how genetically you are formed.
mm,
And so just take a step back. So your genetics, your genes are part of, I am not a biologist or scientist, so please excuse me if I do get this wrong, but I've been doing a lot of reading. But like, so your genes, obviously there's a DNA sequence in your body, and your brain will read DNA sequence, and your body will then react to what that DNA sequence is. So
Mm.
there is this chromosome and this chromosome, and they talk to each other like this. Your brain reads that, and there is an output, right? So with, again, going back to my example, my dad has really good eyes, my mom has really bad eyes. My mom's bad eye gene was stronger than my dad's good eye gene. It won, and now I have to wear glasses. you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that is science. It is science. It is proven. So
Mm-hmm.
the traumas of your parents, or the traumas of your generation, or the lessons of the previous generations, there is a sequence in your body that your brain is reading, and is then acting on.
Mm.
Now, the good thing about epigenetics is that it is completely reversible. Okay,
Mm.
you can change the way your brain is reading this DNA
Processing
sequence,
this.
the way your
Mm.
brain is processing that information.
Well,
And I
that's
think
good
that
news.
it's a scare. I know, right? Like, I will never be able to change the fact that I have an astigmatism, but I can change the fact that my previous lived experience does not
Yeah.
have to be my future lived experience. And
Mm.
that is completely 100% in my control. And I think that's the good thing to
That's the
take
good
away.
news.
It's the
Yeah.
good news. It's the good news. Like, it's the good news that you can change the way your brain is reading this DNA sequence in your body.
True, but
But I
Cass, how
also think
terrifying. How terrifying
it's
to be like
insane.
those rats. How terrifying.
It's
This thing didn't
insane.
even happen to you. But now
It
you
didn't
are
even happen to
scared.
you,
Now you've got
but
trust issues. Now you won't give anybody a
you've got fear,
chance.
you've got
You've got
shame, you've got
fear.
guilt, you've got a sense of responsibility for
Ew.
things that you shouldn't have
Mm.
responsibility over, and it is literally written like a code in your body.
Sorry.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
my vitamins, my supplements that I never take. I don't even know why I still have the alarm.
Or has this alarm on her phone that reminds her to take her vitamins. Never takes her vitamins. Never does it. Just doesn't do it.
Having the alarm just makes me feel like I'm a grown, responsible adult who takes her vitamins. Even if I don't do it, I don't know.
Lol, that's so funny. Um, so yeah, so as I've dived deeper into this epigenetics hole, I'm like, oh my goodness, what DNA sequences exist in my body? What stories do I need to retell myself um to kind of, what things are holding me back? What's my open door that I am not boldly and confidently and with everything within me running through, because this invisible chain is holding me back. Okay, or his face right now.
I I'm having a full body experience here. Like my body is just shuddering from I'm just like, oh, I've got goosebumps from this. I'm listening to this and I'm just going, what the actual.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to like also like tell a story here, because
Mm.
as I've gone on this, so dug in the epigenetics hole, and the next step for me was, how is this affecting me? Um,
Mm.
and a big part of what was causing me stress and anxiety was my job. Okay. I was in a job, I'd been there for a really long time. I loved my job. I loved the work that I did. I loved the people that I got to work with, and it was a good time until it wasn't. And it's
Mm.
unfortunate that, it got to where it got, and me and my boss didn't have a great relationship, and it
Mm.
was T for tense. And this got into my head. It got into I was just someone who was walking around, someone who previously had just been so confident and so bold. I was now stressed. I was anxious. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know who I am. I was walking into rooms a shell of myself. Okay. Now I removed myself from that situation. I'm now in a new experience. My current boss is incredible. Like, she's amazing. Okay.
Mm.
But what I do see happening is, when my boss sends me an email or sends me a message, or if she calls me and my phone starts to ring, it is a it is a visceral and physical response in my body that goes, alarm bells ringing. Like
True.
something is wrong,
Friend.
prepare for battle. Like
Sure.
prepare for prepare for the worst. And I've been working through this in therapy, transparently. Like it is something that I've been working through in therapy. And then I came across this thing of epigenetics and I was like, this is my this is my new DNA sequence that I need
Mm.
to rewrite,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
I need to rewrite this DNA sequence because not every bus is going to be like my previous bus. Not every, encountered work is going to be the same as it was once before. Um, like and I'm having to unlearn and relearn like just how to be and how to be me and how to be in this space. It has been insane.
I don't know if you can see my face. I'm having a
I can't see your face.
moment. I'm having an actual freak out
Yeah.
moment. And you know something that came to mind for me, and this is lived experience trauma. A while back, some years ago, I used to have these really terrible cramps, like period
Mm,
cramps,
mm,
and it was not a fun time. So bad that
mm.
I'd sometimes have to get injected, just so I could.
Wow.
This one time, my brother-in-law
I
had to
didn't
come
know
to my
that.
house at like 10:30 or 11 p.m. at night to inject me with Valium so that I could at least,
Sure.
it could knock me out and I could sleep through past the pain or through the pain.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
it was like that for years. It was bad. So every time my period was coming, I'd like brace for impact. Like I was miserable on the
Yeah.
day because I
Yeah.
wouldn't sleep through the night at all. I'd just be in
Yeah.
so much pain until like 9 in the morning, and then
Yeah.
exhaustion would take over. And
Mm,
I
mm.
remember one of those times in therapy, and this came up, and she said to me, what you don't realize is that your body has now understood that this is the system of things. And she says,
Yeah.
every month around the time that your period should start, your body goes into battle mode because it's like, oh, here we
Mm,
go. We're going to do this thing again.
mm,
So you're going
mm,
into like fight mode just because it
mm,
remembers that the last three, four, five, six, seven,
mm,
8 times,
mm,
this is the
mm.
battle we have fought. And I didn't, so she was like, so even though it like your period hasn't even started, but like the week before, and I know there's PMS and all of that, but you're also
Yeah.
so stressed and so afraid and so
Correct.
anxious and a little bit aggressive because you're like, we are about
Mm.
to do
We are
battle.
getting ready to
And
fight.
I
Yes.
didn't realize that this was a thing. She was like, but your body knows
Yeah.
this. And so it is
Yeah.
prepping. So I'm like, imagine, like in your instance now, you've gone through this toxic thing, or imagine people who have gone through like a toxic relation. Your body has rewritten its own code to be like, oh,
Mm,
here we go. This is what we're going to deal with.
mm.
It's
This is what we're getting
definitely,
ready for. Mm.
I'm like, if we just audit our lives here,
I know.
I,
But I think there's a beauty in because there's a beauty in this level of self-awareness because now that you know,
now
right?
that you know.
Now that you know, you are free to do, free to act, free to respond, free to address, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. These rats, they don't know that on the other end of this door is freedom. What they do know is that if I try and cross the door, something bad is going to happen. They don't even know that it could be an electric shock because they never experienced that. In their minds, I can't go there. I don't really know and understand why, but I can't go there. And it takes someone maybe holding a mirror up to your face, but also maybe this level of self-awareness to unpack, am I my own barrier to success in this moment?
Yes.
Right? Am I
My
am
answer is yes.
what invisible chains are holding me back? How is my brain currently reading my current DNA sequence in a way that is forcing me to act in a way that I shouldn't act? Because for me, I got to a point where I no longer recognized myself. Like
Mm.
I used to be confident and
Oh, girl.
outspoken and loud and like unashamedly myself. And I suddenly felt timid and weak. and small. And we understand why. But now in rebuilding myself, I'm like, I can't allow myself to get there again. I can't allow myself to lose so much of who I am and what makes me me to the point where I'm looking in the mirror and I don't recognize who I am anymore. Like, I can't allow myself to get there.
Thanks, Cassandra. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
I mean, this is
I'm
why I'm here.
I'm
I'll be here all week, folks.
I don't have words. I'm because
Yeah.
I'm doing that thing that you do where after I've said
You
something, now you're
process
processing.
information.
I'm really processing this because I'm thinking about like I really am sitting here auditing my life. No jokes.
Mm,
I'm thinking
mm,
about some of my default reactions to certain things and trying
mm.
to see if I can trace back to when
There we
that
go.
started happening.
There we
Because when you
go.
said I used to be confident, I used to be loud, I'm like, I used to be confident. I used to be the life of the party. I used to be the center of the attention, not because I wanted
Yeah.
it, but I was just
No,
a
I
vibe.
understand. Yeah.
And
You're still
yesterday
a vibe.
thanks.
You are.
Yesterday, I met someone and I went over and I introduced myself to her. Not something I do,
Well done.
but
I'm proud of you.
I did do that. And we got chatting for a little bit. She goes, you've got such a nice vibe. Like you're such an interesting person to
You
talk to. And I'm
see?
like, and I said to her,
Verified
let me tell
by
you,
a
I'm
stranger.
trying very hard here right now. I'm trying so hard. She was like, I can't
Ah,
even see that. Like it's so natural for you. And I'm like,
wow.
used to be this person. What happened
Sure.
to me? So like
What
I'm sitting here
happened?
just like trying to trace back because it
Mm.
is sometimes really just the little things. And one of the examples that came to mind. Sorry, I'm gonna shut up now so that you can continue. One
No,
of the
I love
examples
all of this.
one of the examples that came to mind is how we often tell children to shut up and sit down.
Mm.
Like a child that asks a
Mm.
lot of questions, you say, stop asking so many
Mm.
questions. Just
Stop asking
eat
so
your
much.
vegetables. It's
Eat your
good for
food.
you.
Sit down.
Just eat it. Sit down. Don't climb there. Don't experiment. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Mm.
I mean, and we think that we're just protecting them from doing something that'll harm themselves or that'll kill them, or we're just trying to make sure they turn out as good humans. But what if we are also just in unknowingly rewriting their code. And now a
Mm.
child who's confident
Shoo.
is like, I shouldn't be.
Oh my gosh.
A child who asks so many questions is like, I shouldn't
Oh my
ask.
gosh.
A child who wants to experiment with things because it's
Oh
like,
my
I'm
gosh.
curious about the world is like, no, curiosity killed the cat. I want to stay alive. I'm not going to do it. Like,
Oh my
what
gosh.
if that's what we're actually doing? And then
That's
they grow
such a
into
good question
humans
because, yo, yeah,
and now they can't explain why they're not the way that they used to be.
yeah.
Isn't that
Wild.
wild?
No, it is wild. It is T for tense. It is T for tense because now that you've brought children into it and how we speak to children and how, they are shaped by us, because obviously we are grown now. I still don't feel
Mm,
like an adult, but apparently I'm an adult.
not at all.
Um, and and I'm in a stage in my life where I'm like, am I gonna have children? Am I not gonna have children? What am I gonna pass on to them?
Mm,
And how will they then show up in the world
hmm.
in and with what baggage, going back
Yeah,
to Ted's girlfriend, but like
baggage.
what baggage are they going to be carrying around with them that will either not only affect them but the people around them? No, it's wild. So again, and I want to come back to the good news, okay? The good news is you can change the way your brain is reading this DNA sequence, okay?
Really
You
helpful to
can
know that.
it's epigenetics, it is a science. Google it, read about it. I will maybe send some links somewhere somehow. We'll figure out how to do that. But
Yeah,
but it's firstly it's fascinating, and then secondly, the good news is that it is fully reversible. And so the journey that I'm on now is figuring out how do I change my body to read
yeah.
the sequence differently? Okay.
Hmm.
And number one is for me has been there's a lot that before you can learn something new, you
Hmm.
need to unlearn
Unlearn.
the old thing.
Yeah,
Okay. So you need to figure out how to unlearn the old habit, behavior, the old something that was said to you that you believe to be true that now isn't true anymore. you need to figure out how do you unlearn this so that you create the space to learn a new truth,
Mm.
right? Um, the second thing has been learning how to, and this one has been interesting and it ties in so nicely to what you were just saying now, but has been how do you reparent yourself?
You?
Because in relearning a new habit, there has to also be an element of kindness and grace because you're
Mm.
learning something new. There also needs to be a little bit of tough love to get you over
Mm.
the hills, you know? Um, but how do you reparent yourself then to like through the process? This one I'm less clear on. I don't want to lie to you. Like I'm less clear on this one and
I've seen some
what
books
this
on this though,
looks like. Yeah,
but I've not
looks like and feels
actually,
like.
yeah,
Mm.
because they'll say something about like reparenting your inner child or something like that.
Reparenting
And
your inner child. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm also not clear on this one. I haven't actually tried. I haven't read any of the books. I just see it and I see some articles, but I'm just like, my current self needs parenting. My inner child should wait.
My inner child should wait. Look, yeah, I do want to spend some time unpacking this idea of reparenting yourself because it speaks a lot to who your inner child was, your younger self was, and how they were shaped and how that's impacting you today. I feel like that could be an episode on its own. So
For
maybe I'll
sure.
go do some rereading on that. The second thing is also go to therapy, right? And I think you know, going to therapy can look like physically going to therapy, but it could also be therapy with the people you love and trust as well, you know, because sometimes what happens, and this is something my therapist has told me, we talk about CBT. Have you done CBT? Yeah, right. So
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
cognitive behavioral therapy. There is something that you believe and it needs to be recoded, right? So
Mm.
if you are someone who overgeneralizes, you know, or if you're someone who maximizes or minimizes an issue,
Minimalizes, yeah. Mm.
you know, like you
Minimizes.
need to kind of go through the process and but someone
Mm.
needs to kind of walk that journey with you because when you're in it and when you're involved in it, it's too foggy to see
Yeah.
past the current. So someone needs to go,
Mm.
okay, you believe this, but maybe we need to have a logical, rational, you know, proof
Response.
point that
Yeah.
shows that what you first believed is no longer true. And then the more you do these exercises, the easier it becomes to do these exercises on your own.
Mm.
Um, that is something, yeah, that's something that I've learned. I think the one thing is don't wallow on your own. Like I just
Mm.
don't think the healing from the like the relearning how to do this epigenetic thing is something you can do by yourself. I don't know, but I just don't think it's something you can do by
Yeah.
yourself.
I think
Um,
you'd need some help for this one,
you would
to be
need some help,
honest.
like because
Mm.
once again, you don't know what you don't know. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone like, and maybe there might be signs, you know, like your life might feel different, look different, sound different, taste different. Okay. But maybe you need someone to be like, whoa, you know, what's going on?
Yeah.
Can I help you? Can I go on this journey with you?
Me, I'm here for the black people
Tell me more.
who who don't believe in therapy, who think therapy is for white people, or who think therapy is pointless, or who
I
like
do want
who
to give I do want to give credit to a lot more younger black people who are getting involved in therapy, but you are right. Like
that's
you
why
are
I'm
right.
like, if you, because I understand like how a lot of us were raised. Um,
Mm,
but it's not, therapy is not magic. It's not like you're going to go in
mm,
and this person's going to wave a wand and abracadabra, you're healed. That's not what
mm,
it is.
mm, mm.
And it's not even because people have this idea that if you go into therapy, there's all kinds of cookie type things that happen there. You know, you're gonna get what's
Cookie.
hypnotized. Yeah, like you're gonna get
Ah!
hypnotized. You're gonna be put in a trance. Or
No,
some
that's not
people
what
are
it
just
is.
like, it's completely useless. You lay down on a couch, you put your feet up, and you talk about your feelings. But sometimes, and that does happen, but more
Yeah.
often than not, it really is just a time for you to challenge misconceptions or challenge
Correct.
thought processes that you've had,
Correct.
challenge false
Correct.
memories, and figure out ways to rewrite that or rewire your brain
Mm,
so that you can live
mm,
a better, wholesome life. Sometimes it's a way for you
mm,
to heal. And
mm.
listen, even if it's just for you to go and talk about your feelings, go talk about your feelings. Go on, go do it. It's okay.
Express. Let it
Express it. Some of us
go.
don't even know how to
Yeah.
talk about our feelings. Go talk about your
Yeah.
feelings. Go talk about your feelings in a safe space where you know that
Mm,
I can say whatever I want and whatever I'm really
mm,
feeling without being judged.
mm,
Go use it as a
mm.
practice session to learn how to communicate your feelings to other people.
With people around you.
Even if that's all that therapy is for you. But
Yeah.
please don't be out here just like, we Black, we don't do therapy. We do.
Please,
We
yeah,
need
I
it.
would. We do
Our
need it.
ancestors
Yo,
have
we
given
need
us
it.
so much trauma. You're going to need to deal with that thing.
There's
So,
a lot to process. There was and I want to build on this piece of advice as well. Like, if you are someone who is exploring the idea of going to therapy, like, just also do your research. Just because they say therapist at the end of their name doesn't mean that they're a good therapist, doesn't
yes,
mean that they're the right
ma'am.
therapist for you. So do
Mm.
your research, ask people around you in your world, make sure that you're going to someone good. And the reason I say this is because on this exact piece of, pushing Black people to, embrace therapy to heal from whatever it is they're carrying. Um, a friend of mine's friend, okay,
Mm.
is someone who is obviously carrying so much in them. And the people in his world have said to him, dude, you need therapy. And so he went on this journey where he found a therapist and he went and he started seeing the therapist. And then the therapist started hitting on him. Like, I
Is
know.
that even legal?
It made me so angry because for someone to get to the point where they've taken this bold and important, crucial step to help get them, you know, to help them on their mental health journey, and then for this to be their experience, it's like, I was like, send me the name of this therapist immediately so that I can
Exactly.
report them because
Exactly. Because I'm mad.
unacceptable, like completely unacceptable. So just make sure you do your research, make sure you've got the right person. Um, and the other thing that I would say on the therapy journey is it took me a while before I found my therapist. Like, I met with
Yeah.
a couple of different people before I found someone that I truly felt, comfortable with and someone that I could connect with. It took time, it wasn't like
Yeah.
a one and done.
Yeah.
So just because you meet with someone and it doesn't feel right, please, please, please don't give up. Like, keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah, until you find
And
something that
I
works
would
for you.
say try it like give it a good, as they say, give it a good college
Good
try or the
college
old
try.
college try. Give it a good try. And
Yeah.
if you decide it's no, it's just not for me. I hear what everyone is saying. I need to find another way to process this. Maybe I need to find a mentor, or I need to find a life coach, or
Mm, mm,
I need to find another way. This therapy thing isn't working for me. That's okay as well. But you need
yeah,
to give it a try first
correct.
before you decide this doesn't work for me.
Before you
You know.
throw the baby out with the
Yeah.
bathwater. Um, yeah. And then I think the last thing that I would wrap the episode with is just, for me, the concept of epigenetics has truly been mind blowing. Like, it really has forced me to think about things differently. Um, but it also, like, I asked the question before, but I'm gonna wrap up and ask it again. What am I my own barrier to success because of
Mm.
what I have been through? Um, and does that need to be, is my future written in stone as a result? And the freedom to know that it's not is wonderful. Like, it's lovely to know that this isn't my future, but it's also reminded me, and I want to remind everybody listening as well, is that you are destined for great things. Okay. And by
Yes,
great
ma'am.
doesn't, not everyone is okay. And by great, I mean, like, great can look different and feel different for
Mm-hmm.
different people, but you are
Mm-hmm.
destined for great things. You are destined to be great to the world, be great to someone, be great to your family, be great to the people, in your circle.
Mm.
Um, that is already true. Okay. But it requires us to step into whatever it is, step into our potential, step into, the journey of becoming that person. It
Mm,
requires us to be bold enough to take that first step.
mm,
But just because you're carrying baggage doesn't mean that your future is less great.
mm.
It's completely within your control, whether or not you become the person you were destined to be. So yeah, understand your potential. Don't be your own barrier.
Get out of your own ways, what you're
Get out
basically
of your own
saying.
way. 100%.
Mm,
Get out of your
mm.
own way.
Guys, I don't have anything to say. I'm just I like yeah, I'm gonna need a minute, an hour, a couple
Yeah,
days. Check in with me
it's a
next
lot.
month.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
a
it's
lot to process. Mm.
shoot.
But it's again, remember the good news. It's all
I know the good
reversible.
news. It's
The good news is
reversible.
it's all
Something can be done
reversible.
about it as
Something can
far
be
as
done
you
about
even
it.
know.
It's 100% in your control. Like
Woo.
this is a good thing. This is a good
Yeah.
thing. So, yeah. Anyway, okay, deep breaths, everybody. It's
I
gonna be okay.
know. We need
Deep
that.
breaths, in and out, in and out. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Come say hi on socials. If you have seen that video on epigenetics and it triggered something for you, or if you watch this episode and you want to like have a conversation about it, send us messages. Like truly, truly, like we want to hear from you. We want to know what your experience is. We want to know what you've learned. I'm always wanting to learn. Yeah, so don't be afraid to slide into those DMs or into the comment section at all. Speaking of which, come say hi on socials, Instagram, TikTok. You can also find us anywhere and everywhere you listen to your podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and there's something else. Oh, Apple Podcast as well. You would think by now we would have this like rundown, but
Nope.
like absolutely not. Every time I get
Nope.
to this part, I'm like, this is so awkward.
Girl, same.
Anyway, we love you a lot. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe anywhere and everywhere you find your podcasts. Also, you can watch and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Okay, love you. Bye.